surround us. Or maybe it's just me. There's treasure in the sea.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the SP podcast. I think that's still our name, right?
Yes. Lunch break podcast.
I know it's been a long time since we've done one, but we are back and
Feels
always
refreshed, feels new again.
Better than ever.
feel better. So go ahead and introduce ourselves. I am Daniel Sarate.
I'm Jared Garza.
And I'm Eva Morgan. Wow, a whole last name from you today, Daniel. That's
Honestly,
new.
That's great.
New year, new
It's
you, right?
refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
You never say your last name. Parker always has to say something about it.
But he's not here with us today. He's showing in Willacy, but we'll
Today
try.
we have a very special guest with us.
Yes,
Today,
we have Lizzie Urbina from the Communities Against Substance Abuse, also known as CASA, and she serves as the coalition coordinator for behavioral health solutions of South Texas. So you can go ahead and say hi.
Hi, how are y'all doing?
We're doing pretty great. How about you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Do you want to give us a little introduction of your life or your job?
Why you're here to talk to us
Sure.
today.
Like my personal life? I'm just kidding. So, yes, my name is Lizzie Urbina, and I'm with Communities Against Substance Abuse Coalition, again, also known as CASA, out of Behavioral Health Solutions of South Texas, which is a lot of words, I know, but our organization covers 19 counties, but CASA specifically covers Willacy County. This is the 6th year that we've been here in the county. We focus on drug and alcohol prevention and education. So we work a lot with young adults, kids, but we also work with adults as well because we can all learn a little something about substance abuse, including myself. So it's good for us to try to get the word out there on what parents should know, what kids need to know, and just educate ourselves a little bit more on the dangers and consequences, which is a little bit of what we'll be talking about today concerning alcohol.
Okay, so here today you're specifically here about alcohol abuse.
Yes.
Right. So the percentage of underage drinkers ages 12 to 20 who drink have increased over the last 10 years?
So surprisingly, funny story, every time I ask somebody, I ask specifically youth that question, they automatically assume that it's increased, which surprisingly, with research being done, it's actually decreased by about a third. So in the past 10 years. So again, this is nationally.
Right.
So locally, I don't have that, but nationally, thankfully, it's actually decreasing among teen youth.
So do you think that's from people just spreading the message? And
I'd like to think
that?
so because, again, we've been here, like I said, going on 6 years. And right around the time that we got started, there was a bunch of grants that throughout the nation that went out to focus on substance abuse prevention because of the problems that are occurring. And so I'd like to think that has something to do with it. I hope. Maybe parents are starting to talk to their kids more about it also.
I'm sure it's really helping.
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of, it's really dialed down.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, here in Willacy County, a lot of kids are surprised to hear that. And, I mean, I get it. I'm from here. I've lived here my entire life. So, I mean, believe it or not, I was young at some point, and so I was in school. So, yeah, we did see a lot of that. Of course, it's a good 12 years later or so. So I don't see it as much as I used to. But kids tell us a lot about things that go on, and they're very honest. Mm-hmm. So we kind of try to feed off of that. And we're not going out trying to tell everybody, oh, you drink alcohol, you're going to die.
Right.
That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to give them the facts and let them know, what can happen, what can result from it, and hope that they'll make those decisions, hopefully, better decisions later on.
Well, how can we do that? Because I know we're teenagers. We have friends that are involved in things like that. And I think it's hard for a kid to tell another kid, even as a friend, like, you shouldn't be doing that, or this can harm your health, or things like that. So how can we say that?
So that's a good question. And so to be honest, so it's going to be a different situation always, right? Mm-hmm. And some people, sometimes you're going to get people who are, open and want that, advice that you have to give. But then you're going to have the people who they're like, yeah, whatever. Like, they really don't care about what you might have to say about it. So I think being completely honest with them, letting them know that, you're telling them this because you sincerely care about their health, their well-being. I think focusing on things that you know that they want to achieve later in life, whether it be college or any kind of sport or whatever kind of hobby that they're into, maybe just, focus it in on that and let them know, hey, imagine if you got caught drinking, first of all, underage, that's against the law, so you can get into some trouble. But then also imagine, how quickly your life can change if you decide to consume alcohol and you end up hurting somebody,
Right.
whether it be like a car crash or violent behavior. There's so many different things that can happen when somebody's under the influence of alcohol. So I think kind of just letting them kind of, give them some of the reality of what
Right.
can happen and how quickly their life can change, and, hope that they'll take it. And if they don't, maybe not right away, but sometimes it takes some time for them to kind of think about it. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people have to have like something personal happen to them in order for them to maybe change their behaviors and for something, to have more positive behaviors. But again, just showing them how much you actually care about them, I think can go a long way.
Right.
What are some symptoms of an alcohol overdose?
Okay, so there's a couple of symptoms would be like loss of consciousness, somebody having a seizure, vomiting or nausea. I don't want to gross y'all out because I know it's not too far from lunch, so I apologize in advance for that. Sometimes people will have, some memory loss, blacking out. And a big reason I like to talk about those would be, unfortunately, in this day and age, when kids see, I don't want to say kids, when teens see a friend of theirs or somebody that they know, passing out, stumbling around, things like that. What do teens do nowadays? What's the first thing they bring out? Their phone, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Snapchat, because they're laughing. It's funny. To them, it's funny. So I try to encourage teens because the thing is, it can be, it can be life-threatening.
Right.
So if I tell them, please, if you ever see somebody going through that, please, if you're going to take out your phone, take it out because you're trying to call for help. You're trying to call somebody to a professional, 911 preferably, to come help out because there was actually an incident, not maybe last year or the year before, where it was college age students, but they were just, their first year of college. They were still really young, 18, 19 years old. And one of their buddies drank way too much alcohol. And they kind of left him alone. They were just like, he'll be okay in the morning kind of thing. Well, he never woke up because he had alcohol poisoning. And so these guys are losing scholarships, getting into, being charged in court and stuff because they didn't, take the proper, I guess, exactly, to get him help. And he was their buddy. So, it wasn't like they did it on purpose, but they didn't know any better.
And not just that, but taking a video of someone and posting something like that, if something that gets in the wrong hands, that can really ruin.
Exactly. And it can actually be used against them, like in a courtroom. So I just try to encourage kids to, I'm sorry, I keep saying kids, to encourage teens to, do the right thing and try to help somebody if they're going through something like that.
Right.
Well, with all the drugs and thing going on, a really big factor going in is having drug and alcohol problems and another mental health issue usually go hand in hand, and like anxiety and depression. And what are some ways we can address this problem?
Okay, so unfortunately, yes, mental health goes hand in hand with substance abuse a lot of times, and a huge part of that has to do with the fact that if somebody's feeling, a lot of anxiety or depression, sometimes they don't really want to go get help. Unfortunately, nowadays, I feel like it's kind of, people feel like people are going to look down on them if they reach out for help. So they try to self-medicate. And unfortunately, that'll lead to substances or alcohol abuse. So we really encourage people to, get professional help, talk to your counselor, talk to maybe, an adult in your life that can help you or at least find the right help for you because self-medicating is just not a good idea. So I just really encourage teenagers, young adults, that if you feel like there's something going on that doesn't feel right, or maybe you're under a lot of stress with school, things going on at home, whatever the case might be, to talk to somebody about it, because that can be very helpful. And it's better to try to get that help rather than try to fix yourself sometimes, because we all need help, including myself, So I just encourage teenagers to reach out, because, again, self-medicating can cause even more issues than whatever you had to begin with. So.
And I think there's a big stigma around that, where people don't want to really show
Or
the
admit
problems that they're
that
having, or
they-
admit
yeah.
they're
Wanna
having.
seem
And I
like
think how you said how it
fine.
correlates will lead to that. So I think
Yeah.
getting that problem solved will lead to
That's
another
true.
problem.
And I know this is a little out in left field here, but I know lately there's been a lot of like suicides. And again, this coincides with, depression and people trying to self-medicate themselves, not being able to, or not wanting to reach out. So, that I know is an extreme, but at the same time, there's small steps that lead up to that point. So we need to address those small steps to avoid that.
So we're vulnerable to like just everything mentally, especially when using drugs or alcohol. So until what age does the brain continue to develop to where?
So do any of you all want to take a shot at that one?
I'm going to say 20 something.
25, 21?
Average age is 25. So yeah, you were spot
Okay,
on.
I was
About mid 20s is where our brain fully develops. And so actually research shows that 90% of addictions, that people have later on in life, have their roots in the teenage years. So a large percentage of addictions starts in the teenage years. So that's why it's so important for teenagers to, again, understand that the choices that they're making, if they decide to, at a party, have some alcohol, what seems like maybe something minor can unfortunately, lead them into the path that can, cause a lot more issues later in life.
How do we know if that's a problem? Like, how do we know it's where the point where it's alcohol abuse?
That's a good question. So I get a lot of people telling me, well, a few is not, it's not going to hurt. But the reality is alcohol, period, is a gateway drug, right? So the 3 gateway drugs are alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. Of course, y'all can probably assume what a gateway drug would be. Basically something that opens the door and leads to other quote unquote harder drugs, or whatever the case might be. So basically making that decision, especially again as a teenager, making that decision at such an early age, it might not seem like it's going to do much, but it's literally like a little baby step
In the
into the wrong direction. Right. And I understand, it's sometimes teenagers feel like, well, everybody's doing it. Why not? But again, we're all in charge of, the decisions that we're making. So I try to encourage them, just because maybe you feel like everybody else is doing it or people around you are doing it, you need to make your own decisions, because later on in life, when you're having these kinds of issues, those friends that you were trying to follow in the footsteps of, they're not going to be there for you. Right. You have to think about what's healthy for you. And, again, going back to think about your future and, where you want to be one day and the steps you need to take to get there.
So, what is National Drug and Alcohol Fact Week? Like, what's it about? When is it?
So, National Drug and Alcohol Facts Week is right now. So it started it's Monday through Friday. So what we've been doing is we've been going out to the schools and educating the youth, young adults, and the community as well, just about different facts related to drugs and alcohol. Of course, today we're focusing on alcohol. Yesterday I was talking about prescription medication, and we're talking about myths versus facts, and trying, because a lot of people hear things. For instance, concerning alcohol, I get a lot of youth telling me, they're like, well, miss, I heard if somebody's having, alcohol poisoning, give them milk or feed them bread or give them coffee or tea. I've heard all these random things. And those are hearsay, so we're trying to set the record straight as to what's actually a fact when it comes to that. And I told them, nothing you're going to consume is going to help. If somebody's having alcohol poisoning, literally, you can't drink or eat anything that's going to help. Unless if it's something severe, then of course you have to go to the hospital and they're going to have to pump out your stomach, basically get that alcohol out of your system. Like when people are, again, I apologize for the grossness, but when people are like vomiting, it's because their body is literally rejecting, because they've had too much to drink and their body's trying to like stop them and get rid of it. And so I told him, eating and drinking stuff is not going to do anything. Taking a cold shower is not going to do anything. It's not going to help in any way. That's why I encourage them to get help, because only a professional is going to be able to help them out with that. So things like that is what we're trying to talk about, so people don't think that, one thing's true, when in reality it's just something that somebody started at some point,
And with that, I know there's a lot of peer pressure, but I've also seen familiar pressure as well, especially in like cultures around here where it's not just their friends like asking them to drink, it's the family, like, especially in men and in boys. I think that's common as well. Yeah,
that is very common in our culture. You go to a birthday party, somebody's turning 1 year old, and there's more beer than there is food, or more beer than there are kids. I know, including myself, that's what you see kind of every get together. That's what you see. And you're right. The men are like, okay, well, we're here. We've got you here. Have a few beers. It's not a big deal, because, they feel like they're taking care of them. So that's confusing. So for a teenager or for a young adult, that's very confusing, because if that's all they're seeing, that's all they're being exposed to, and their parent or their, tia is okay with it and providing it for them, then it seems like it's okay. So that's a tough one, because that's something that we see all the time. So again, we just have to continue the education side of it, because we know that each and every one of us is going to see that. That's just the reality of it. So we just have to know, and make the decision if we're going to do it, or if we're going to be able to be like, you know what, no, I'm good. I'm okay. I'll wait. Because first of all, it's against the law. We're not... Yeah. Legally, nobody can drink until they're 21 years old. And then I also stress to you teenagers, it's like, okay, so when you turn 21, is that going to make it safe? Is that going to make it healthy?
Right.
And they're like, well, no, like nothing changes, but yeah, it's a tough thing considering our culture, for sure. We just have to, us, like myself as adults, I have to make sure that I'm not giving my nieces, my nephews, alcohol at a young age. I have to make sure that, I can only control what I do. I can't control what others do. So we try to encourage other adults to be that role model and not provide for the young adults.
So I guess now is a good time to go ahead and take a little break. And after the break, we'll be back with more topics such as the resources needed to help with alcohol and so on and so forth. So
we'll be right back.
See you guys right after the break.
Thanks.
to be the same. Some look for the privilege and sacred, yeah. Ooh, and I want to praise it. Will you stay with me? I'm lost in America. Will you stay with me? 'Cause I'm lost in America. Stay with me. I'm lost in America. Stay with me now. Wide awake in an alien world, alien world. Wide awake, but I'm still the unheard, still the unheard of. I'm still wide awake in an alien world.
Hi guys, we're back here with Lizzie Urbina from Casa, and today we're talking about alcohol abuse and what we can do about that. So a question that I have is, what can we do here at San Perlita to just try to avoid this problem? Like, what are signs that we can look for to help our friends and everyone?
So that's a good question. So as a friend, I think if you're noticing any kind of changes in their behavior, if you feel like they're being a little, like they're avoiding maybe, any kind of behaviors that are out of the ordinary, or maybe they're missing school, maybe they're not as involved in sports, you feel like their energy level has changed, things like that can be signs of whether it be substance abuse, or again, maybe they're suffering from some kind of a type of anxiety or depression. And again, because we were talking about earlier how those two can coincide. And so just, again, changes in behavior and energy levels and involvement.
And what can administrators do? Because I know that's more of their problem.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And so administrators, so I feel some teens don't really want to reach out to, again, whether it be administration or adults. So I feel like I believe that administrators, if they're having a hard time reaching out to a certain teenager, maybe they should reach out to their friends, their peers,
Right.
and then see if they can reach them through their peers, because, teens are more likely to talk to their friends about problems that they're having at school or at home than, an adult that maybe they don't know very well. So I think just that teamwork between the administration and the students is important to reach out to somebody.
Do you know of any like local help around Willacy or in the Valley in general, just to help with teenagers at risk?
Yes. The first one I'll save my agency for last. But one of the ones that comes to mind, I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but there's actually a treatment center in Lyford, which is Mesquite Treatment Center, and they house 12 through 17-year-old young men. So unfortunately, they don't house females, but maybe that'll happen in the future. But right now, they have inpatient for young males. So that's something that if somebody's needing inpatient care, they can provide that. Also, we have a local AA group, which I'll share my contact information. So if there's somebody who's needing to reach out to them and try to make it to those meetings, we have that available. And that's for adults and youth, both. That's for anybody. And so I'll provide that to y'all as well. Also, for students, I recommend going to the counselor. Y'all have a great counselor. She's amazing. And I know she'd be helpful. We work together very closely. So if she feels like it's something that we can help out with, she would refer a student to us, us being Behavioral Health Solutions of South Texas. And we have counselors in our Weslaco and in our FAR office. So that would be outpatient care. But we're able to help if there's any community members here in San Perlita or in Willacy County, adults in particular, we'd be able to provide that outpatient counseling for them.
So any and all information that we're talking about, all the contact and info, we're gonna go ahead and post it on our Facebook page on where this podcast is gonna go. So anybody listening to can go ahead and go to the comment section to the links that we're gonna have provided below. You can go ahead and see the contact information there.
That sounds good. And we also have a Facebook page, so we try to post up, things that we have going on, and, we'll put little bits of information and drug and alcohol facts throughout the year, so.
And with that, what do you guys have coming up soon?
Okay, so one of the big things that we have would be, I know it's in a couple of months, but in April, it's Alcohol Awareness Month. So I know we're going to be out in the community trying to bring, again, awareness to alcohol use, whether it be underage drinking or even, substance abuse within adults. So from every few months or so, we'll do like a town hall meeting. We'll get a panel of experts together talking on the different, whether it be the legal, consequences, whether it be the treatment side of it, the prevention side of it, or possibly intervention as well. So we'll bring in other organizations, external organizations, and we'll get together and try to educate the community. So around April, I know we'll be having one. We don't have a for sure date and time right now, but we have that going on. And throughout the year, we try to reach out to school districts and have presentations, because I know a lot of people feel like, people are, kids are only getting drug and alcohol information during maybe Red Ribbon Week, but we're trying to make sure we're out there as much as we can be, because it's always good information to provide for the youth. But also, I know this is way ahead of time, but during the summertime at the library, we do something called Willacy County Kid Fest, and that's kind of elementary, middle school aged kids, and we'll have events for about a week. We last year we had a really great turnout. We had about 250 kids, so they got great information. But we also had activities. We made it fun. It wasn't just it was games, activities, arts and crafts, and different things for the kids to learn and benefit from. So we have that in the summer as well. And then lastly, off the top of my head, we have during August, which we were actually here in San Perlita last August, we do our Christmas in August, where we give out backpacks with school supplies. So we try to do that. We usually give out about 500 or so backpacks full of school supplies, and we try to provide that for the youth of Willacy County as well.
That's really good.
So what's your organization's main goal? I mean, for Willacy County, like the end result.
The end result would be nobody's using drugs or abusing alcohol. That would be, we're done, because we focus on prevention. Of course, I know the reality is that's not going to happen. But again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, how numbers have decreased with teens using alcohol, that makes me really happy to hear, because we're a small county, right, but it's got to start somewhere. So I think just a little bit that we're doing here, it can go a long way. So as long as, even if we change, one child's life or a parent, a family, then, we've done a little something, and that would be great.
Yeah, and I know, and it's cliche that we say, but talking about it does help. What we're doing, just maybe it's just a stepping stone for them to reach out for help.
Just bringing the topic up and just making it a known discussion,
Yeah, I agree. I like having these conversations.
All right, guys. So that's pretty much all we have planned for today. But we would like to invite you back to do another podcast on any other info that you may have.
Thank you.
This was...
I've got a lot of info.
We liked having you. Thank you so much.
This is a great discussion that we had today, guys. And again, I'd like to thank you for joining us today, and we really appreciate it.
Thank y'all so much.
So, all right, guys, we're going to go ahead and sign off. I'm Daniel Zarate.
I'm Jared Garza.
And I'm Eva Morgan. Bye, guys. Until next time.
Later.
Bye. Peace.